Welcome to Looking Ahead. I'm Damaris, and I'll be taking part in this online conversation about rites of passage. I want to welcome to the conversation Oyisa, Yamkhela, and Kimay.
My name is Kimay Chinnappen, and I'm a Hindu. My rite of passage, which was coming of age, and it was a huge transition in life from a girl to womanhood. It was as significant as marriages to females in the Hindu culture.
My name obviously is Oyisa. The rite of passage that I went through is called Ulwaluko. It usually happens to boys of like 17 and 18, 19 years of age. It usually lasts for about a month. For some people, it's 3 weeks, right? And it usually happens in June, or it happens in December. So for me, I went in 2018. And that marks the transition, boyhood to manhood. So that's the process for me.
My name is Yamkhela Mavela. A rite of passage for me, it's something that holds meaning to us, that shows a transition from one stage to another stage, which we all go through. The matric ball stands in between high school and university. The matric ball is there to signify that you are moving away, you are leaving high school behind, you are leaving your friends behind, you are going to another chapter where you're going to be more responsible. So it's very important in that way.
So, first of all, I'm Damaris. I guess the difference here is I'm Kenyan. I think everyone here is South African. And the rites of passage I'm going to be talking about is called ropes. And ropes, I think it does mean rite of passage. That's really the acronym. It's like a combination of Christian principles, but also cultural practices. When a girl or a guy, so it's for both girls and guys, although they don't do it together. So when they reach class 8, right before you go into high school, there's this period of time that's set aside so that the girls go with the women and the guys go with the men. And then it's pretty much like mentorship that happens, and talks about what it means to be a woman and all of that. And then the guys have their own process where they get initiated, and then there's the healing process, and then especially for them, like when it's done, the men of the church and of the community come and like pretty much have a nice big bride. So it's like an excuse to like a whole lot of meat. I didn't go through any of those practices. I was playing tennis and touring a lot, so I didn't have the time. I was playing tournaments, so I didn't go.
Morris,
Mm-hmm.
do you feel not going through that after standard 8 to grade 8? Do you feel that the fact that you didn't get that chance to get those talks and go through the process, has it affected your life in any way? You feel you missed something?
Well, I felt like it hadn't for a really long time, because I was just like, they just get talked to about like girlhood and stuff. I was just like I'm happy playing tennis and whatever. But then as I've grown older, um, there is, and I like, yeah, as I've grown older and started to appreciate mentorship more and having someone guide you more, that does feel like, okay, that should probably have been there. Yeah, so I only probably started feeling like that later on. In terms of the community, no one honestly really cares. Or like it's not a oh, you didn't do this, so you're not really accepted in the community. We don't have any sort of community pressures like that. But just for me personally, I do feel like it would have been really nice to have gone through a process of just like step by step, because when you're a kid you feel like you know everything, and you don't. So yeah, although for the guys it is very different. If you don't go through those processes, there is that community like almost stigmatization in a way. So for a girl it's much different than for a guy in that sense. So yeah. Okay.
I think there's some similarity with my culture there,
Mhm.
but I think it's because it's sort of like a brotherhood of some sort that you get when you've gone through the process, and so you can't really have that much of a uh, I don't want to say a relationship, because you can have a relationship with someone who hasn't undergone the, but I think it's especially improved when you have that shared experience with someone else. So what I've experienced is a improvement in the relationships I have with people who've gone through the process.
How did it feel like going into the process and coming out of it?
I was so excited. I could not even sleep that day. So when I went in there with my partner, and everyone was shouting and saying our names and calling out for us. It was magical. Many I was so happy. Students who wished to go went inside did not go because they were not able to afford teachers the clothing, the cars, and everything. So it got very emotional. It was very emotional, but then because we were going to an after party, it was exciting again because we went to have fun.
I think it felt long overdue for me because I think I was supposed to go in like 2016, but I only went in like 2018 because I had to participate in debating tournaments. So instead of tennis, it was debating. So for me, it felt very like long overdue coming into it. Surprisingly, I wasn't very nervous at all. For me, I just felt like I need to get this over and done with already. And then after, I think I felt a tremendous amount of relief that I had done it.
I really just wanted to get it out of the way, but also I was very stressed and nervous because I didn't understand why so much of pressure and focus was put on this. And also I didn't really like the change that was happening in my body. So when it was over, I was relieved to a degree, but mostly I felt a huge weight on my shoulders because I felt a lot more pressure to be more conscious of how I look because I'm a female. I'm not just a child anymore. I felt more conscious to worry about hygiene and taking care of myself and how I behave in public and with other women and with other boys at that time. So I felt relieved that it was over, but as I said, I felt the pressure of being a woman now.
Okay, so does it like give you a certain position in the community or in your tribe?
Yes, I think it does. I think it's one of the markers that you've reached the age of maturity that people can now give you a lot more responsibility that you would have otherwise not been given. Not to say that that doesn't apply to people who haven't gone through the process, but I think traditionally it's exceptionally one of the ways in which we can have, a definitive sort of observation that you probably now can take a lot of responsibility. So I think it's one of those things.
Having that event in that place will remind me that this is where you come from. This is what was told to you during that time. It will remind me that I was told that I'd need to be more responsible. I was told that obstacles were gonna come. So I'll always look back to that event when I moved to that stage. Whenever there were obstacles in my way, I'll always go back and say that this is what I was told, that I need to be accountable, I need to be responsible. So that event will always be there to remind me that I was given advice. I was told that I would need to be more responsible. So it's like a foundation in a new chapter.
Wow. Okay. And was there anything you had to wear during that time, or anything that marked you that you were going through that particular rites of passage, like while you were there or even after?
I think, the most salient sort of symbol is like how you dress when you leave, or like when you're in town or like, in society. You get to like wear this like suit. It looks pretty like, I don't know how to describe it, but it's like it's a normal suit, but it's like brown, or it can be any color really, but it's like an old traditional suit that marks that you've gone through the process. There's this sort of cream called Imbola that you apply on your face. It looks pretty fun at first if you're not familiar with it, but it's one of the distinguishing characteristics.
Then in my family, there's this car which my dad went to Mechupo in, and then I also went into Mechupo with that car because I felt that I was more closer to my father, and it meant a lot going to Mechupo using that car. So it was an old car, but then it meant a lot to me. So yeah, I went to Mechupo using that car.
So in our culture, because it's very similar to marriage, traditionally we use saris. So I had to use a sari, and I was ordained with jewelry and flowers in my hair. So it was very similar to a wedding. So you'd have to look. The whole point of it is to look beautiful, because it's a celebration, and it's something worth celebrating and to dress up for. In that ceremony, we were given a gold gift, and that was something you carry with you. It's sort of a gift that your family gives you to welcome you into adulthood.
So Kenya is interesting. We have people who wear like full-on traditional dresses during the like initiation ceremonies, or even during just like life stuff. So, but then it wasn't like you have to necessarily wear this particular piece of clothing, although we're constantly sort of wearing our traditional attire. So it's a lot of like African printed fabric. So for example, the girls would be given, it's like a piece of fabric called a lesso, and then with a lesso you can like tie it around your waist, you can tie it on your hair. So it's not very like strict, like you must wear this and this, but because also a lot of times during those ceremonies, because like for us it's sort of married with the church, so it's not like this particular tribe is doing this now. So it's like everyone from different tribes comes together. So if you want to wear your traditional dress, you can. But then it's wearing traditional clothing is integrated into the culture, so it doesn't seem like that's a very like, oh my gosh, now you're wearing the traditional dress. Yeah. So there's nothing specific, there's nothing very outright that says you are going through the ceremony now. Guess for guys it's just the pain, you can see it on their faces a couple of weeks. Kimay, did you feel like what you were going through was a test?
I don't think in any way for me, with our ceremony, it was in no way a test.
Yeah.
It was not supposed to be a test. Obviously, to me, it felt like a test, but to my family and to my aunts and uncles, it was just a celebration. It was something to be very excited about, but not so much for me personally.
And Oyisa, what about you?
I mean, the word test implies that you can fail, but well, it is called initiation school for me, so presumably it does mean you're being tested in some way. I think if yeah, it is a test sort of, because you have to really think about how you're going to change yourself, how you're going to make yourself better, how you're going to adopt personal individual responsibility in your life. And there are good ways and bad ways of doing that. So I think in that way you can fail the test by going through the process and coming out of it without having any significant change. So
does it like give you
parts
a
of it are
certain
designed like a
position
test,
in the
and
community
the success
or in your tribe?
passing the test is evidenced in yes, you I think being a
Mm.
more it does. I mature think person, it's you one of the adopting markers responsibility,
that
you becoming
you've
a
reached
better
the age
figure,
of
generally
maturity
speaking,
that
in your society.
people can
can
Wow.
now give you a lot more
Okay, so
responsibility
this
that
is
you
for
would have
us.
otherwise
Not
not been given.
it's not really a test,
Not to say that that doesn't
because
apply to people
it's
who
a whole lot of
haven't gone through the
mentorship
process,
and
but I think traditionally
guidance.
it's
So
exceptionally one
based on
of the
like my
ways in
friends'
which we can
experiences or
have,
even
you
my
know, a
family members'
definitive
experiences, there
sort of
wasn't that
observation
like,
that you
oh my gosh, I
probably
have to
now
get this
can
right. Although there is
take a
that
lot of
sense of
responsibility.
responsibility for
So I think
now
it's
you're no longer a kid.
one of those things.
So there are certain things that you need to do. I know, especially for the guys, like you're taught now you're a man, and there's also that thing for this is your cultural responsibility as a man. This is what men do. This is how they act in the community. And then as girls, this is how to be a woman in the community. These are this is how you carry yourself and that sort of thing. So I think it's pretty similar to yours, Oyisa's, where it's like it's like now you're in this stage and this is how things go in this stage.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like the turmeric, like because you said that symbolized beauty. So would you put it on the whole time or just like sometimes?
No, just during the ceremony. They have
Oh,
a
okay.
few different powders that they put in. So turmeric is really good because, of course, it cleanses you internally, but also they put it on your skin because it gives it a glow. So it beautifies internally and out and the outside too. It's actually a superstition for us not to see boys during the week before the ceremony, which was very weird. I couldn't even watch TV
Oh, wow.
because it's believed that if you see boys during that week, that you'll break out in acne and pimples. Which is strange, but I followed it just in case.
Gosh, that's so interesting. Wow. Okay. Wow.
But there were instances where I would have visits from different people, and they would, you know, tell me stories about their experience or, you know, the genesis of the practice. You know, where did it begin, and how was it practiced back then? It's quite intriguing to, you know, to learn about how it's evolved. I think, you know, sessions like these are necessary because now we need to consider how we can integrate this culture within a broader multicultural context, which was different from, you know, back then where people lived in largely homogenous communities, and now, you know, there's just a lot of intermingling of, you know, different people from different ethnicities. So now there's it's more of a question: how do we, you know, necessarily inform people of what parts of our culture are important, what ought to be respected, you know, those kinds of questions.
Yeah, definitely. Our teachers, the students who were talking there, they were encouraging us, telling us that it's not the end of our lives. Our lives are only beginning after that. So everyone was talking about responsibility, how we must be accountable for the decisions we're taking. And yeah, it was very important. So everyone was talking, the teachers, the principal, and some parents, because we had a parent session before we had our matric ball. So the parents were there, they were talking, giving us advice on how to actually challenge ourselves, on how to face obstacles in the new chapter that we were heading to. So yeah, everyone was talking about responsibility.
I think in our culture, it's very family orientated. So it isn't just my immediate family. It's all my aunts, all my uncles, their husbands and wives all come together, and everyone's involved together.
Okay. Kimay, do you appreciate the experience that you got to have with your coming of age ceremony? Do you appreciate the chance to mark that transition in your life?
I think I do. I think I appreciate it because it's important to learn that something big has happened in your life. And although it's not practiced with every female, who are Hindus, but I think I'd want that for my child as well, just for them to understand, but also not see it as just a negative thing, but also something positive.
Wow. And what about you, Oyisa?
I appreciate it, and I think it was good for me in that I was very ignorant of a lot of things that happen in my culture. I think having to learn more about my culture and, you know, how it's progressed is very valuable for me. I think it's also very, it was very helpful for me in terms of understanding my responsibility with how I interact with people of my culture.
Yeah.
And lastly, I think it was necessary because I needed to see it for myself, because, you know, with my culture, there's a lot of controversy surrounding it. And I think one of the ways of solving controversy is through conversation. And I think I would be a poor participant of that conversation if I hadn't gone through that process.
Wow.
So if you had gone through the process, do you think you would have become a better person in some sort of way? Or do you think, how do you think it would have affected you if you had gone through the process?
I think it's first of all, because things are usually done as a group, so you don't just like go alone. You're usually like with a group of other girls who are probably like around about the same age as you are. So I think in that sense, the sense of community would have been much nicer. And then also when you're sort of taught things like this, and this, obviously you can sift out the information, but you don't have to like go and look for that information from somewhere else, because you've been taught these things already. So I think in that sense it would have been nice to not have to almost go and look for like information on my own. And then also just because I think I had a different childhood, there was sort of this sense of because I was always moving up and about, so I feel like that process would have given me some sort of grounding, like, okay, this is the community I'm part of, this is how things go around here. That I think that grounding would have been helpful at that time, because I think when you move up and about, there's this sort of like, you're not picking from very many different places, which is a good thing, essentially. Like, you have a broader perspective.
What I would say is that rites of passage are very important to everyone because they signify a change in a stage, and it's important to have something that signifies transition, so that we know that each stage comes with a new responsibility, because if we do not put that in if we do not have these rites of passage, we will actually be going through life and having nothing that's changing. So having these rites of passage, we are able to say that, okay, now I have more responsibility. Now I am going to be another person. I'm going to have to be accountable for my decisions, because as a person, we have to change. We have to see that there's differences between two stages. You cannot be the same person as you were in high school and then be the same person in university. You need to be more than you were in high school. So I feel like these transitions are very important in our life.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the conversation, and I really enjoyed learning about the different traditions and cultures. And I think it's so important that we embrace each other's culture and learn about it and love the different cultures, because it makes us who we are as people today. So thanks for the chance to talk about it, and I've learned so much.
Yeah, me too. It's so great, and it's also really great to hear how cultures are still being preserved, but at the same time sort of adapted to the times. It's really nice to hear that there are still, cultural practices that are going on, and things are not just like, oh yeah, we live in modern times, so like peace out.
I think the conversation about rites of passage is very important for, modern day, precisely because there are so many ways in which people achieve maturity in their lives, and it really does force us to ask the question about what kind of unique value we can get from these rites of passages. And I think we can still see some unique benefits that we can get from them. And I think that one of the best ways of finding this out is through conversation.
Thank you so much for joining us. Would love you to join the conversation and share your stories and experiences in our memory bank. So follow the link in the description below. And yeah, thanks for joining us.